Yeah, absolutely. That's very profound. I think that's so true when you talk about, I think the ability to trust yourself. And actually the book lay out very, beautifully how you just followed. As you said, you didn't seek a teacher appeared and you just followed. But I think that self-trust is probably something very essential, because what people usually suffer from is a lot of, like, call it monkey minds, lots of ideas, and ideas oftentimes are negative, right? Our self-doubts are saying, okay, like, let's compare this and that. I think that's the fundamental practice. Like, how do you do away with those clouds, but kind of see clearly this is, wherever you stop. I love what you said, wherever you stop, a path appears. But how do you, because most people would think, okay, that's a misstep. Oh, there's a hole. Yeah, I can't go there. Okay, look at where I am going. Right.
Right.
Exactly. I made a mistake. Or even if it feels right, people will say, well, if I step there, maybe it's better. Right. So, like, there's all this what ifs going on, and in people's mind. Like, maybe tell us a bit more, like, this essence of self-trust that, do away with these concepts and illusions in our mind.
Well, I define the law of faith in one of my books, The Laws of Spirit. I define faith as the courage to live as if everything that occurs to us is for our highest good and learning. And I'll say that again. Faith is not based on a belief, because many of us believe this or we believe that. That's fine. But faith is the courage to live as if everything that occurs is for our highest good and learning. Because on some level, if our soul, let's say, chose this, we might as well make the best of it. Mm-hmm. Instead of, why did this happen to me? Am I being punished? Was I a bad person? All the complications. It's like, this is what's given to us. See, I view life as a form of spiritual weight training. Mm-hmm. If we don't lift any weights, we don't get any stronger. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, daily life is a way to strengthen our spirit, to lift those spiritual weights. And that's why I like to remind people of the value of adversity. Sometimes, when I'm giving a talk, I ask people to raise their hand if they've ever experienced physical, emotional, or mental pain in their life. All the hands go up, right? And I say, well, fine, we can disagree on a lot of things. If we agree on everything, only one of us is necessary. But I hope we can agree on this. Wouldn't you say that adversity, that challenge, that difficulty you faced in your past, don't you think you're a little bit wiser now because of that? And maybe a little bit stronger? And you may even have a different sense of perspective. I heard this saying the other day that we win or we learn. So it's not lose. We win or we
Never
learn.
Lose.
And I also ask people, how many of you have done a sport or done physical exercise training? Many people raise their hand. I go, that's a form of voluntary adversity. Life is easier if you don't do that, right?
True. Lying down, watch TV, much easier.
Yeah, much easier. So it's voluntary adversity, taking on a sport. And I say, how many of you have maintained a relationship, an intimate relationship with someone for more than, say, 2 weeks? And hands go up, and I go, that's a form of voluntary adversity. Because relationships aren't easy. My dear wife, Joy, and I have been married, we're going on almost 50 years now. And it took me about 25 years to realize she wasn't criticizing me. She was improving me. So, but the point is, relationships can be challenging. Even if we get along well, we bump heads now and then. Everyone does. Yeah. So we have to compromise and, and so on. And I ask, how many of you have had children? And many hands go up. I go, voluntary adversity. I've had 3 daughters. And it's not easy raising children. Your nerve endings are right out there with them. There's new worries and challenges. It's not easy raising kids, but it's enriching for those who choose to do so.
Yeah.
Or how many have involved in the world of business? Voluntary adversity. So we take on, that's what the purpose of daily life is. That we take on these challenges, we get stronger and wiser, and that's part of our training. It's not elsewhere sitting in a man wrote to me once after reading my first book and said, Dan, after reading your book, I really am interested in spiritual practice. He said, but how can I make the time? I have a wife and 3 children and a full-time job. And I pointed out to him that his wife, his children, and his full-time job were his primary spiritual practices. And it will demand more of us and develop more of us than sitting in a cave and meditating. I know because I've done both.
Absolutely. Well, that's so beautifully said. I want to highlight 2 things you said. One, you call it spiritual weight training. I think that's such a powerful image. Exactly. I think that's every time adversity comes, it's something that makes you stronger.
Right.
And second, I like what you first said. You said, well, we can view anything or any challenge. I don't recall the exact words. Or adversity happens for the highest. Sorry, what did you say again? What's the beautiful words?
Yeah. Faith is the courage to live as if everything that happens in front of us arises is for our highest good and learning.
There you go. So beautiful said. Yeah. So because I think that's so powerful, because people think faith is to believe in some kind of religion or God. Of course, I think those are pathways to it too.
Right.
But it's that belief. That belief is that whatever happens right in front of us, and that's very real and specific and unique to your own. And then having that almost a sort of a fundamental switch and saying whatever happens now is for the highest or best for myself. And that attitude change alone would basically, make everything in front of you look different.
Yeah. And
right?
I don't know if that's true, but I live as if it is true.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we might as well make the best of it, and use it to lift.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's something I used to say for some of my readers. I also got from a great teacher. He said, the challenge comes now because you're ready for it now. Yeah. That's exactly saying the same. Like, basically, kind of switch your own. Okay, then, although maybe our first reaction is always aversion, like, I don't like it. I think that's, first of all, that's normal too. So, we have to accept the fact that it's not like I'm sure Dan is the same. Well, he can probably answer it himself. But once that process is over, being able to believe that whatever happens is because I'm ready, or whatever happens, this is for the best of me now, will just change the game completely. Yeah. But yeah, going back to the question, like, do you still have this cringe when something happens, or you kind of pass that stage? When some challenge comes now, how long does it take for you to say, hey, this is good? Or do you still have our sort of common people hesitation or fear?
So, yeah, that's a good question too. With practice, anything improves if we practice it over time. Just like here and now, breathe and relax. So if something happens that makes me cringe, or, oh no, I didn't want this to happen, an injury, a loss, disappointment, that sort of thing. The first thing is, okay, what do I need to do right now? What can I do right now? And I take a deep breath and I relax the body. Here and now, breathe and relax. But that's not the answer to everything. I still may have to respond and act to the circumstances. So it used to take a long time and complications. Why me and all this? And I don't want this to happen, and denial. And but now it doesn't really take very long. And you could ask Joy; she would tell you that that's how Dan is. I notice it, but it's not perfect. Yeah, but I think I've gotten fairly good at it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a beautiful answer, because that's one thing I took from a teacher too. They're saying is like, sort of the sense of enlightenment is not like suddenly we're perfectly calm all the time. It's the episode of stress or anxiety or fear. It comes less frequent, and each time it lasts shorter. So it's by noticing that change means that we're on the right way, right?
Yes. It's just practice. Daily life is our spiritual practice, not elsewhere. Ram Dass, a wonderful teacher, used to say, oh, you think you're enlightened? Go visit your parents.
Or your ex-wife.
Or ex-wife, exactly. Yep.
Excellent. Exactly. Well, I guess that kind of answers many people's question. Like it's true. Like even for somebody who's as powerful as Dan, this still happens. I think it's kind of relieving, but also means that this is the right path we're on. If you first of all start noticing it, and second noticing that you get this thing less frequent, or you're getting better at it after practicing, right?
I remember I was making a cassette tape back in the cassette days, and I was recording up in our room, and I was just talking about having equanimity and peaceful demeanor. And Joy came in and said, "Oh, by the way, Dan, can you come?" And I went, "Can't you see I'm recording?"
Sure, peaceful demeanor.
That was a wonderful learning moment.
Exactly. We should find that tape.
Yes, really, we should.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I think if you're enjoying this conversation, if you read Dan's book, you'll find many hilarious moments like that. It's very common day challenges, and every little story is very telling. And one of the things I was really amused by is this. There was a little story that Dan shared in his book when he became really famous, because his first book, The Peaceful Warrior, was actually adapted to a major movie that went online in 2006, and it was a very popular movie with high reviews. And I think you talked about in 2008, that's when you were sort of on the height of the fame. You were giving this lecture where when you were leaving, you forgot everything, right? And then it's such a departure from this expectation of this master and big star. Yeah, maybe tell us about it and how what's the learning you took from that funny episode.
Sure, I remember that very well. I had just finished teaching a weekend workshop, so I was a little bit spaced out. I get that way because of kind of what I'm bringing in, and someone from the organization that was sponsoring me to give the workshop came in to say a few words to people to thank them for coming and so on. And I didn't want to stand there, so I went outside. I was going to go to my car and leave. And then I was walking out and someone said, "Dan, your microphone's still on." And I went, "Oh, that's right." I came back, I took it off, put it down, and then I said, "Okay, well, bye everybody." And they, "Bye, Dan." And then I went outside and somebody came out and I heard laughter inside because I left my coat on the chair that he was sitting on, and I forgot the coat. So someone picked it up and took it out, and everybody laughed in the room. So these are humbling moments, and it's a reminder. Some of us can get very self-righteous with all we've studied and learned. We get attached to being a teacher or a great example. And Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, some decades ago, she used to say, "Stop acting so humble. You're not that great." And it's a wonderful reminder to us all. Don't be too humble. Just be yourself and maintain a beginner's mind.
Yeah.